Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties. Thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Print management, document management. Get everything you need to the cloud. We might send you into the cloud with some of today's honorable mentions of the worst losses in Triangle Good history in the last 25 years.
Let me correct you. The top losses. Not the worst, the top.
Okay, that's a good way of putting it. We're going to check in with Marquise Williams today. He might come up in some of these honorable mentions for top losses in Triangle Good history.
Maybe even twice.
Maybe even twice. And our guy Gordon Miller is going to drop on by too, telling you how you can save with no closing costs and some other things that we might get in. You never know when where the conversations with Gordon are going to go. Welcome to a brief history of Triangle Good. Last week, we gave you the Mount Rushmore of Triangle Good quarterbacks. Joe, what are we doing today?
Well, first of all, thank you to our friends at Color Graphic for taking care of us on Capitol Boulevard over there. Any of these prints you've seen behind me, they can take care of those things. Banners, maybe you need your vehicle wrap. Maybe you like a nice summer. Maybe you want to celebrate the 4th of July with a beautiful picture of your family and get it framed to put on your wall.
Sure.
They can handle all of these things for you. So Color Graphic, make sure you hit them up. So thanks to Color Graphic for taking care of us. But today, we are going to get into the most controversial episode that we've ever had together, you and I. That includes any other format. These are the losses that did not make the top 10. And there's 2 of them in particular that are going to anger fan bases. Now, when you say top, it kind of opens up the spectrum for maybe games that weren't a loss, potentially, or events that you were thrown out of, potentially. But for the most part, we are talking about losses that A, you remember, B, hurt, and C, there were either some sort of stakes, i.e. an ACC title or a national title, and or something unusual happened.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, we put more weight into the stakes and the historic moments, and you're going to see those next week when we get into the top 10.
Now, with the honorable mentions of top losses of the last 25 years, we've broken these up into 4 categories.
Yes.
4 categories. And we will culminate with the ultimate category, opportunity lost.
Right.
But let's get started with the first category, names.
Say my name, say my name. Say, baby, I love you. I'm always thinking of you. Why you running game?
Matt Freege, Torrey Smith, Russell Wilson, Austin Rivers, Jeff Withy, Johnny Football, Anton Gill, Scotty Moe, Kyle Bambard, Ray, Newman, Emeka Emezi.
All those names. At some point in that run, you went. So let's do this in chronological order, shall we? Let's start 2004. Matt Freege, Vanderbilt, NCAA tournament down in Orlando. I was there for this one.
You were, and I'm not going to play the video. I only pull it up to show you. Remember, we talked about how Golf on Sunday showed us the 2008 U.S. Open replay, and it was in HD.
Yeah.
This game down in Orlando was decidedly not in HD.
No.
Okay.
No.
So I only pulled this up because Julius Hodge is picking up a foul. NC State is winning this game 69-59 with 2:44 left.
Not nice.
And you're thinking, yeah, the Wolfpack wins this game, right? And this one matters, and it didn't make the top 10 for a very specific reason. But this one matters because this, out of the 10 teams that Herb Sendek coached at NC State, this was the best. They went 11-5 in the ACC. It was the only time Herb Sendek finished in the top 3 of the ACC. They were a number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. You have to go back to Jim Valvano's teams to find a time where NC State was as high as a number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. In short, they had 2, not 1, but 2 NBA players on their team in Julius Hodge and Josh Powell. You got to comb through the history books to find many NC State teams with 2 NBA players, at least ones that aren't related, if you want to count the Twins as being one of the most recent versions of this. What I'm getting at is this was Herb Sendek's best team. They actually had expectations. They actually had been through some things, including the year before in a loss that might show up next week. But this was a classic Herb Sendek loss. Up 10, as I showed you. I'm not going to play the clip, but up 10 with 2:44 left. And then Vanderbilt gets going on a 4-point play by Matt Frigie. She takes a 3, makes the 3, is fouled. They have a 4-point play, and it was a total and complete collapse. And all of the people who dick ride for Herb Sendek absolutely and buried NC State all of those years and still to this day will ride for Herb Sendek. Never watched these games, never lived through these games, and certainly didn't go through it and say, now, wait a second. Why are they always up by 15 or 20? Why do they always lose these games? And I finally have the answer. I finally have the clarity. Sorry, Mike DeCourcy. Sorry, Jeff Goodman, to call you out on your ridiculous take.
It was an underrated coaching mastermind, was, I believe, the quote that was given to us by, who was? He's with the NCAA now. Andy
Katz.
Andy Katz. I think Andy Katz said that.
Love all 3 of you. Not trying to be a jerk
Andy.
to you.
No, I love Andy.
Not trying to be a jerk to you.
Yeah.
Here's the truth. And I finally learned this 21 years later. Herb Sendek was a sunny day coach. And if you know anything about me, one thing I can't stand more than anything else is a sunny day player or a sunny day coach. You can go back and watch all these games, and when they're running hot, God, the vibes are great. They feel great. They look great. Jules is doing his thing, and you're like, man, that's my team. But the instant something goes wrong, a manager gets called for wiping the floor, gets a technical. JJ Redick makes 1 3-pointer. Cliff Crawford gets called for a foul. Julius Hodge picks up a foul, or there's a turnover where you're like, they shouldn't have done that. The instant one thing goes wrong, Herb's teams knew how to collapse. And this game against Matt Frigie in the NCAA tournament, this one it also goes down as the single most money I've ever lost on a bet.
Oh, I see.
It also goes down as that.
Okay, well,
I landed in the airport. They were up 10.
Yeah.
I had State -3.
Yeah.
I landed in the airport. They're up 10. Where the clip I showed.
Yeah.
I went down to get my luggage. At the time, there's no phone. I don't have a phone. I have a cell phone in 2004.
Sure.
I go down. Now, all of a sudden, when I'm picking up the luggage, there's TVs on and State's losing. And I was like, all I did was land, walk out of the plane and walk downstairs. And they somehow lost this basketball game. This was quintessential Herb Sendek. This was Herb at his worst. And this is why you will never, ever, as long as I am alive, I will not let the Herb bullshit last. Okay? I will call you out on it every single time. The man was a sunny day coach. And the second something went wrong, his teams folded. And this was one of those ultimate folds.
So Frigie, I believe Frigie is a loan officer now. He's a mortgage guy.
I would have pictures of that 4-point play plastered on my wall like this behind me.
31 points.
Yeah, I was
4 threes. Hit all 11 free throws. And you talk about things falling apart. If I remember correctly, because again, I was there for this. If I remember correctly, and I kind of remember this in that, didn't he, again, my brain sometimes deceives me, but if I remember correctly, Frigie had a shot, get a lucky bounce off the rim, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it goes in. And that, I think they cut it to 6 at that point, right?
Yeah, he got molten hot after that 10 point.
When the ball is bouncing, he thinks it's short, because I think I've seen interviews in the past where he's like, I thought it was short. It goes short, but it bounces, got the lucky bounce in. That's when you go, oh, it's over. It's over. It's just not happening for you. It's just not happening for you. All right, fast forwarding to 2010. Torrey Smith, Maryland legend, Big Ten legend now. Big Ten legend now. This is one of those classic cases of a triangle football team, in this case, NC State, having an opportunity to do something. Win the division. Did it happen? No, Joe. Because Torrey Smith had a hell of a day.
So they go to Maryland. They take a 14-0 lead. NC State does in a game that would have won the division. Now remember, transport yourself back to 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia Tech was the team waiting for them on the coastal side, but State that year beat Florida State, who was the best team essentially, and they had this thing. They had it. Mike Archer, I consider a friend of mine, and to this day, we talked very gingerly about this game.
Yeah,
and Torrey Smith caught 14 passes for 224 yards and 4 touchdowns. This one stings a certain sect of the fan base because of those stakes, because of the opportunity. State and ultimately ends up losing the game 38-31.
So we go to Russell Wilson while he was at NC State to the following year, 2011, when he's not at NC State. He's actually at Wisconsin. So how's Russell Wilson showing up as a name that I think I have an idea here.
Yeah, so listen, we've done a lot on Russell Wilson.
We have.
I won't rehash all of that here.
We have.
To put it short and sweet, after the 2010 season, Russell Wilson was basically told, you can't come back.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Glennon's going to be our quarterback. We got 2 years of Mike. You've only got 1 year left. Via con Dios. Okay. Russell ends up at Wisconsin. Now, the beginning of that year, and keep in mind, while Russ was at NC State, there was some attention on Russell Wilson, but not that much. He gets to Wisconsin that year, and he is lighting the world on fire.
I remember signing up for the Big Ten Network because his first game with Wisconsin was on the Big Ten Network, and I wanted to, because it was a storyline. I actually remember doing a blog post of keeping up with what Mike Glennon was doing and what Russell Wilson was doing, which of course culminates in.
Yes. So we get 2011, the start of the 2011 season. NC State starts that year without Russ. And you're like, okay, they moved on last year. Now, remember in 2010, after not getting to the ACC championship game, they still finished in the top 25 for the first time since Phillip Rivers had them finish in the top 25. They went 9-4. So they start the next year with a win over Liberty, who at the time was a 1AA team. Then Mike Glennon gets his Winston-Salem baptism. They lose at Winston-Salem, just as Russell Wilson did, just as Phillip Rivers did.
Tale old as time for NC State.
Then they get another 1AA team at home, at the time South Alabama. Then they play a Thursday night game on short rest. And unfortunately against South Alabama, their defensive line had gotten decimated.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you don't remember at the time, Butch Jones was the coach at Cincinnati.
He was like the hot coach guy at the time.
He was. And Cincinnati had a little bit of a war machine. And they were healthy as they could be. They beat NC State 44-14. And back then, remember, the NFL didn't play on a Thursday night. So the showcase game was the Thursday night ESPN football game. NC State didn't play in many of these, but they got a chance in this one. And in this one, it turned into one big infomercial about Russell Wilson and what he was doing at Wisconsin and all of the success that he was having at Wisconsin. Meanwhile, how stupid is Tom O'Brien? What is NC State doing? And to add insult to injury, they get pasted by Cincinnati, 44-14. The only good thing to come of this was the next week they lose to Georgia Tech. Finally, Central Michigan game happens. They beat Central Michigan. That was on October 8th. They had an off week. Tom O'Brien calls me during the off week. Hey, let's go meet somewhere. I said, fine, I'll take you to lunch at the Raleigh Times. I take him to lunch at the Raleigh Times. We start talking. And I said, hey, man, you're getting murdered by ESPN of all people for this decision. Like, why don't you just explain it to me and I'll explain it to everybody else? No, I don't need to do that. I don't care. I don't need to do that. I go, Tom, you don't seem to understand. All you have to say is, I had Mike for 2 years. I didn't have Russ. I only had Russ for 1 year.
End of story.
And we don't need to talk about this anymore. You got to defend yourself a little. No, I don't need to do that. Of course, as we learned in the project that we did, this is where the infamous Tyler fucking Brocious line comes from and all this other stuff. And to Tom's point, they rallied after that open date, as they often did. As you know, they finished the season, they go 8-5. Mike comes back 2012. They lose Tennessee down there. They're on their way. But I still think the loss of Russell Wilson needs to be included in when you're writing the history of the first 25 years of this century.
Well, that Cincinnati game was just the beginning of it, because for years, when you would have downtime in an NC State game for a few years, it would come up. Or it would continue to come up.
And then they would catch strays during like every NFL broadcast because Russ was then controming the narrative and saying, "Oh, I got thrown off the team.
Which
he called me and cut me." And
to back up Tom O'Brien. He's right. It didn't matter what he was going to say.
Fair.
Did not.
He could still defend himself a little bit.
I get it from your perspective. I want to write this story. Let me do it.
Yeah.
I get it from your work ethic, what you want to do. But Tom was ultimately right. What does it matter? Because the way Russell's career went, it was part of the lore. And never forget, again, this is one of those things that sticks with me to this day with Peter King. Peter King was getting honored at the NSMA back when it was in Catawba, right? And at the train station. And Peter King sits down with me and Adam, and he asked us questions about Russell Wilson. He's asking us, like, hey, so what really happened? And we laid it out for him, just like as simply as you did, man. 2 years of Mike Glennon, 1 year of Russ, blah, 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 blah. And he goes like, yeah, okay, I understand. Did Peter King express that? No, because what's it matter if you have continued access to Tom O'Brien? Doesn't matter if you're Peter King.
Right.
Do you want continued access to a guy who's going to go to 2 Super Bowls and win one of them? Yes. Yes, that matters more. So guess whose lore is going to win out? Russell's. So that's why I think in the end, Tom O'Brien was right to think that. Moving on in the chronological order, we have 2012. Man, we had a lot of stuff, names back to back to back to back to back. Austin Rivers in 2012. This is double-edged though, because the Austin Rivers dynamic with Duke people in that season, you take the win over Carolina in dramatic fashion, but that was a year that a lot of people just don't want to remember, 2012.
It's weird because now we think of Duke as a one and done factory. Mike Krzyzewski, what I would argue was the third act of his career. This is the first year he turned it over to a singular one and done star in Austin Rivers, the number 1 recruit in the country. Webb Wellman did his mixtape, got him going, shined him up, made him look good. Austin was, he wasn't a savior, if you will. He wasn't on the Paolo Banchero, even a Brandon Ingram level. He was a good player whose teammates, I suspect, didn't exactly love him. That's a team with Seth Curry, Mason Plumlee, Ryan Kelly, Quinn Cook. They were a team that had a little bit of that veteran grizzle.
Yeah.
And Austin was the one. I think Mike learned from this team. If you're going to go one and done, you probably got to bring more than just one freshman in, because otherwise you create this dynamic between the returning players. I also remember this game vividly. This was a game at the Smith Center. Duke goes over there. Carolina has a war machine that year, and we're going to get to that team maybe soon, but we're going to get to that team pretty soon. Carolina has a war machine. That was the first time, Joe, in all of my time in the Triangle, because up to that point, in my opinion, every Duke and Carolina game was basically won by the better team.
Yeah.
Like we had this run, like even before Jay Billis started his "it always delivers" nonsense. There was like, oh man, this is like peak Brian Ives. The last 20 games, Carolina scored 3,210 points and Duke scored 3,209 points. Like, this is peak bullshit, stat bullshit. And this was the first time that I was here, and I got down here in 93. It's the first game that they played where I was genuinely surprised by the outcome.
Oh, everybody was.
And Austin Rivers hits that one step back 3 over poor Tyler Zeller to cement his place in the history. And also, remember, this launched, in my opinion, the career of Jones Angel, because he had followed the legend in Woody Durham. And this call, if we had access to it, this call is one of the great all-time dejected calls. And he does it perfectly in the moment, captures it perfectly, given the dynamics between Duke and Carolina. Just an unbelievable job by Jones in the moment.
Of course, what I'll always remember from that game is that Roy Williams got in minor trouble by 2012 standards. If this happened today, it would be a lot worse. You mentioned Tyler Zeller, and he was making like essentially suicide pact jokes.
Oh yeah.
After the fact, because man, I mean, you're going to be posterized in this particular shot.
Yeah.
And Roy, I mean, I got what Roy's humor was. It was gallows humor, and some people did not like that. Also in 2012, you're gonna have to remind me of this one. Because
Okay.
you said Jeff Withey, and I'm like, why is this not ringing a bell? What is with Jeff Withey?
Let me continue to keep us in the year 2012, the glorious year that was 2012.
Yeah.
Carolina had 1A or 1B team in the country.
Yes.
Kentucky had 1A or 1B team in the country. Okay. Duke at Austin Rivers. State in the first year of Mark Gottfried had a plucky little squad
Sure.
of Scott Wood and Lorenzo Brown and CJ Leslie and Big and Rich. Rich Howell was a beast that year. Rich was a true motherfucker that year for NC State.
Mm-hmm.
But NC State couldn't beat anybody except when they beat Tony Bennett finally down in Atlanta, and that helped them punch their ticket to get into the NCAA tournament. NC State had one of the flimsiest resumes of all time.
Yeah.
They had a
Yeah.
win over St. Bonaventures, who was in the field, and I believe that was the only team in the field that they beat.
Yeah, and that was also when NC State got under the Gottfried era, the hook of the last team in. Because remember,
this was that year.
But they weren't the last team in. They just happened to be the last team revealed,
Shown.
and that became part of their the shtick that Gottfried leaned into during his tenure before he got fired.
So after losing to Carolina in difficult anguish fashion in the 2012 ACC tournament, the famous Carl Hess Stickergate tournament,
yes,
on the Alex Johnson block charge that was neither. State ends up being an 11 seed. They're in Columbus. They play San Diego State, beat them fairly handily. Then they get one of the first true choker Georgetown teams. There was a run there under John Thompson III where they choked, and they beat Georgetown by 3. And there was a plane waiting for NC State to get to St. Louis.
Yeah.
The plane was waiting for them to get to St. Louis. And who's there? Carolina's there, but no Kendall Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio is there playing Carolina. Kansas is there, and State is there. And State goes toe-to-toe with Kansas pretty much throughout this game.
Yeah, I remember it being a toe-to-toe game, but I'm still like at a loss with Jeff Withey.
Jeff Withey was Kansas in a long, glorious line of big white centers at Kansas.
Yeah.
Jeff Withey in this basketball game blocked not 5, not 6, not 7. He blocked 10 shots
Jeez.
in this basketball game.
That I do not remember.
10
I don't remember that.
shots in this basketball
That's
game.
funny.
So the key here was we're in St. Louis. We're at the Dome. Carolina wins, beats Ohio barely. Stillwater Cologne, Stillman White has to play for Kendall Marshall. Carolina barely beats Ohio, and State is waiting for that 4th matchup with Carolina. But Kansas and Jeff Withey get in the way. 10 blocks. State loses 60-57.
Fast forwarding to 2013, we got Johnny Football. Johnny Manziel. This was the Chick-fil-A Bowl, Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. And Duke is up on Texas A&M at halftime by a score of 38-17. Who would have thought, right? Again, that was a good Duke team. I maintain to this day that they hung with an all-timer Florida State squad in the ACC championship as best they could, right? So here it is, like just putting a topper on a great season. They're going to get to 11 wins, right? They're up 38-17. And then Johnny Manziel happens. Duke goes on to score only 10 the rest of the game, and Manziel went off with 35 points in the second half to get you to a final of 52-48.
Yeah, the important context
And then
here
a homeless man must have watched this happen and said to Jimmy Haslam, "You got to draft that guy."
The important context here is Duke had a chance to get out of Triangle Good.
They did.
And it dogged them
11 wins, man.
It dogged that they had 10. They
saying
made the championship game, but it dogged them that whole year that the Coastal really was dog shit that year.
Yes.
And Duke, they were probably better than people remember, but their big chance to prove something was this game against Texas A&M. They also had Mike Evans, by the way. And they were blowing them out. Cutcliffe had them cornered, had them down, had them dead to rights. They would have been, an 11-win team with a win over Texas A&M, with SEC team with the Heisman winner. I mean, it would have been a true feather in their cap, but in true Triangle Good fashion, they came up just short.
The 2015 Anton Gill. Why is this ringing a bell?
Anton Gill is from Raleigh.
Yeah.
He went to Ravenscroft.
Right.
Anton Gill then went to Louisville.
Yeah.
So in 2015, Mark Gottfried's best basketball team at NC State was 2015. They had Trevor Lacey. They had Ralston Turner.
And the crew.
They had Abu.
Yeah.
And Cat B Cat. You know, Cat Barber. So
Sweaty Cat. He's activated. Anyway,
State does something that UNC couldn't, and that was beat Villanova in the NCAA tournament to get to the Sweet 16.
It's the Piccolo girl.
Well, who's waiting there? The Piccolo girl. Well, who's waiting there but Rick Pitino in Louisville?
Yeah.
And you're sitting here thinking, Louisville's pretty good. Okay, sure, whatever. The person who ends up beating them is the kid from Raleigh, Anton Gill, who did not score, who didn't play in Louisville's first round game.
Oh, okay.
He did not score.
I remember
in the entire NCAA tournament.
Yes.
Other than
yes,
a window in the second half of this basketball game where he scored 7 points in about 4 minutes to turn this game in Louisville's favor. Louisville wins, goes on to the Final Eight, loses to Michigan State. The next day after they lost to Michigan State, he transferred to Nebraska. So Anton Gill, the Wolfpack killer, the Raleigh kid, knocking out Gottfried's best team.
2016 Cal Bambard. Do we have to go over that one again? I'll have to say it's Cal Bambard. People are going to stand a miss kick.
Yes.
Against Clemson.
33-yard field goal into the student section.
Yeah.
Misses it wide right. There will be any number of State fans who could tell you that, yeah, they could have still won in overtime. I would point to that game as Matt Day's just pouring it out and Eli Drinkwitz overthinking it, thinking that he had to get McKeever the ball to win the game because the way that they had won previous games was by McKeever scoring a touchdown. Matt, instead of just giving the ball to Matt Davis 3 times, they try to throw this alley-oop to McKeever at the end of regulation, and that's how it sets up Bambard to come out and miss the 33-yarder. Of course, history will note Clemson did lose that regular season to Pitt at home to the aptly named, the inappropriate name, Chris Blewett as their kicker.
Yes.
Because Bambard blew it, not Blewett. And then Clemson would go on to win the national championship. I contend to this day that Kyle Bambard should be able to go to anywhere in Clemson, South Carolina and drink for free. But there were no stakes. I think that was a gut punch for State football fans.
That's only in the
that was a 7-6 team there were like no stakes in that game.
The only reason why that game mattered in any way, shape, or form was for Dave Dorn to get over on Clemson.
Correct.
That's all that mattered, which of course comes up with Ray McLeod, does it not? Once we get to 2017.
It does. And now you're getting into the stakes portion.
What is this? State was ranked in that game?
This was Dave Doran's best team.
Yeah.
This was the team that lost to South Carolina.
Yeah.
In the opener, even though they outgained them by 500 yards.
Yeah.
After they lose to South Carolina, they rip off 6 wins in a row. They're 6-1. Naheem Hines gets off the plane at Notre Dame with a wool hat and a parka on. And I was like, oh boy, State is fucked. They lose to Notre Dame 35-14. Naheem gets hurt in that game. Doesn't really play against Clemson either. Clemson was ACC good that year. They were triangle good that year. They were not a war machine that year with Kelly Bryant as their quarterback. This game turned, though, in the first quarter when Ray McLeod hit a 77-yard punt return for a touchdown. And then the pièce de résistance was the 89-yard run on the last play of the third quarter by Tavion Feaster. That put Clemson up 31-21. State comes back, has a chance at the end to tie it. Then you get the illegal procedure penalty on Stephon Louis to wipe out the 4th down conversion. And NC State really, they've had other chances against Dave Doran, but this was his best team. Clemson was in a down year. This was the chance at home at a absolutely juiced Carter Finley Stadium to win the game, win the ACC, and tell everyone to just shut up.
But triangle good.
Here
once
we
again. We could do an entire subsection of all the times in which Dave Doran did not get it done against Clemson. Of course, who can forget Laptop Gate? All right, Jamie Newman, Wake Forest. Yet another long line of Wake Forest sticking it to NC State. We've referenced Russell Wilson having to deal with it. Never forget Phillip Rivers had to play Wake Forest before the big Ohio State game, which Chuck Amato was very, very upset about. Mike Glennon, as you mentioned, the baptism. And of course, we have Jamie Newman sticking it to NC State. Another good NC State team, by the way.
So this is 2018. This one's disgusting for NC State fans. They were a 3-touchdown favorite. Wake Forest was decimated by injuries, including one to Sam Hartman, their quarterback.
Yes.
So instead, a first-time starter named Jamie Newman, steps in, and State is winning in this game in the fourth quarter, by 10 points. But Newman leads a comeback for Wake Forest. This one hurt because they couldn't win the division this year, but somebody on the college football playoff committee was enamored with NC State. Because remember, they were number 13 in the rankings. They were 22 in the AP poll, but they were 14 in the CFP rankings.
Yeah.
And all they had to do was beat Wake Forest, who was decimated by injuries, Louisville, whose coach quit, and Carolina, who fired their coach or was about to fire their coach. That's all they had to do.
Mm-hmm.
They have the late lead. And of course, my famous line from that night, you dress like Wake Forest, you play like Wake Forest. NC State wore all black on a Thursday night in a game where all they had to do was tie their shoes and they would have been in a major bowl for the first time and only time in school history. Instead, Freudenthal and Jamie Newman become the villains.
Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with the Gator Bowl, although losing to Texas A&M never helps in that situation. And of course,
murdered by
2021. This has a lot of personal meaning to you with Emeka Emezi in 2021, where you decided to get into arguments with.
There was a lot of arguments.
A lot of arguments online. A lot of arguments on this one. But that was a situation where this is a classic. Again, Dave Doran probably still has a job today at NC State because of games like this, because of pulling out a win out of your ass the way that NC State did against that Carolina team.
North Carolina had a 99.9% chance to win this football game after Grayson Atkins made a 50-yard field goal. If you're a Carolina fan, you know your kicking game has been suspect for the last 25 years at best.
Yes.
Other than the one guy who went down and beat Florida State. Their kicking game has been just hold your breath. And they go up 30-21 with 2:12 left in this football game. Carolina's whole sideline was celebrating. All of like the portions and pockets of Carolina fans in the stadium were talking massive amounts of shit about that. Remember now, this wasn't a good Carolina team. This was the one that started the year in the top 10 and just frittered and fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, it flipped because by the middle of that year, State had hit a hot streak. And Diamond Dave was shuffling quarterbacks around and finally got one that worked in Leary. And they were the favorite in this game. They were the ones that were looking at, being in charge. And if you will, the eternal struggle, the eternal tug of war between State and Carolina. So when it's 30-21, you're sitting there thinking, oh man, Sam Howell's going to win this game. Sam Howell was tremendous in this game.
He was.
They're going to win this game. They're going to walk out of here. All Carolina had to do was not give up a 64-yard touchdown play by not covering Emeka Emezi.
No, Joe, you don't understand football.
Sure. So
you don't understand coverage, Joe.
The one thing they couldn't do, they did. Emezi scores a freebie. Chris Dunn gets the onside kick, and then Emeka has to earn the second touchdown. But he does 24 yards from Devin Leary.
You don't know coverage, though.
State wins 34-30 in one of the all-time improbable comebacks in this series.
All right, let's go through the next two categories. And I think these are ones that people will understand by the numbers. All right, this is the next category. 2014, you've got the 70 points, UNC and ECU. We're going to talk to Marquise Williams about this.
Yeah.
Because you could not have made up the picture perfect setting in Greenville that night for the Pirates in 2014 when they put 70 up on the Tar Heels. In 2017, 107-56. Why is this not ringing a bell?
This is the worst. North Carolina and North Carolina State have been playing basketball for a long time.
Oh,
this is the worst loss ever suffered by either team.
Yes.
107-56 at the Smith Center, a day after the game was supposed to be played, but was weathered out. State fell behind 33-7 in this game, and it was 56-23 at the half, and then it somehow got worse.
It got worse. Yeah. I was like,
it got worse.
Yeah.
Dennis Smith, in his only trip to Chapel Hill, was in foul trouble early. Mark Gottfried got a technical, gets thrown out of this game. 107-56. Carolina, this really springboarded them in that year to being like, you know what? Fuck it. We're going to go win this thing. Even though they had the situation the year before, they already knew their mission. But
it's all part of the redemption.
They had also kind of sputtered a little bit early in that season. It wasn't like this true, like, straight line to the title. And when you beat a team the way that they did, I mean, it was a true ass kicking.
Now, 24 points in 2019, I vividly remember that one. That was NC State, Virginia Tech in hoops at what PNC Arena at the time.
Yes.
And one of the most atrocious things. Now, mind you, there have been some atrocious games. I remember with Julius Hodge team up at St. John's wearing all black uniforms. I believe they only scored, 10 points in the first half, if I remember correctly?
Yep.
This is 24 points, period, for NC State in a loss to Virginia Tech.
NC State went 2 of 28.
Brutal.
From the 3-point line. They had 14 points at the half and 10 in the second half.
Unreal.
Obviously a good Virginia Tech team, but it was the lowest scoring game by an ACC team in the shot clock era.
And then, of course, we have 18 innings in 2013.
Man, this game was nuts. This was on a run.
Everybody was there for the UNC NC State baseball game over at the DBAP. I think it was 50,000 people at the DBAP that day.
The Hurricanes were running cold at the time.
so
this
course,
is
baseball
important.
was running hot.
And baseball was running hot.
Scotty McCreery got involved.
Scotty was talking trash. With the shortstop.
I think what did the shortstop say? He's like, yeah, man, I saw your face in a Bojangles, because I think Scotty had done something with Bojangles. He's like, yeah, I saw your face. I trashed it, or something like that.
So I'm going to venture onto the ACC Daily Network only to show you this play. Carlos Rodon in this game, okay, NC State's ace, obviously, pitched 10 innings. He had 14 strikeouts. He only gave up 1 hit. Yet NC State somehow lost a game where their pitcher, their ace, their guy, their war machine strikes out 14. And do you know why, Joe? Here we go on the way back machine. It's the 8th. There's runners on first and second. Here comes the problem. Batter hits it to the first baseman. Rodon goes to cover. Doesn't have his glove up.
Whoops.
Carolina ends up scoring a run. And then they ultimately win the game in the 18th inning. The 18th inning.
Mind you, none of these are in the top 10.
Yes.
So, like, and then we get to the quirky plays category, which I think this is probably the best way to put them. Are they devastating losses? No, but they're definitely losses where you go, dang, man, how in the world did that freaking happen? So, like, you start with 2 of them in 2010, both the yin and the yang, if you're an NC State fan. In 2010, you get the 2-yard Hail Mary from Russell Wilson in Keenan. To this day, I've watched that replay a bunch of times, and I still don't know how that ended up. You know, classic Russell Wilson running around, doing hair on fire things, and chucks it up into the corner. And then who was it that caught it? It was
Jarvis Williams.
Thank you, Jarvis Williams. He kind of came in out of nowhere on the screen.
The true stinger here, and we can play I have the play up if you'd like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
The true stinger here is Carolina's defense, first of all, had like 7 NFL draft picks.
Yeah.
So they have the ball 4th and goal from the 2-yard line. He runs all the way out, sprints out to the NC State sideline. Joe Montana-esque, throws it back into the back corner of the end zone. The only way for State to score a touchdown on this play is if Danaris Searcy taps the ball back in to play.
Yes.
Which this Carolina safety, like, all you had to do was let it go. And instead, as if being divined, he reaches back, taps it back. State catches it.
Yes.
State was down 9 at this point. They take control of the TJ Graham punt return in the second half to make it 4 in a row for Tom O'Brien over. Actually, at that time, it was 3 in a row for Tom O'Brien over UNC.
Earlier that year in basketball.
Later that year in basketball.
Was it later that year?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess. Yeah, you're right. It was later that year in basketball.
No, you're right. Early, because it was 10.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Chandler Parsons, Florida Gators at PNC Arena. Full court shot.
Way more than it was from the other foul line.
It was from the other foul line, essentially. Yeah, because I remember the way the media seats worked back then. It was Chandler Parsons had the ball in the corner where I sat. Okay. And I've now witnessed 2 incredible shots that give you both the joy and the pain, right? Where you're thinking, no way, right? One of them is 2010 Duke Butler, where I'm watching a shot look like it's about to go in and Butler's about to win this thing. And, the Duke team out of nowhere doesn't happen. And then there's this one, which I knew from the jump, from my angle where I was sitting.
It looked good.
I was like, that fucker's going in. Sure enough, it did. And I've never heard a building quite. And again, this is a common refrain when it comes to NC State basketball. And that building, I've never heard it that quiet and in shock. Absolute shock. And again, the stakes here aren't that big of a deal in 2010. It's just yet another one of those like classic NC State shit moments that people would always point to of like, come on, how in the world is that guy going to make that effing shot? Which he did.
January 3rd, 2010, State has at the foul line, Farnold DeGan.
Whew, that's a name. Let's remember some dudes.
Has Joe. A chance to put the game away, but misses both free throws.
Mm-hmm.
Parsons gets the rebound and throws it in from 3/4 court. The next day, Scott Wood, who is the best shooter I've ever known or ever seen in person, went back to, at the time, the RBC Center and tried to recreate the shot. He said it took him about an hour to finally hit one off of one dribble the way that Parsons did.
Incredible. 2013 College World Series. The bad bounce, Joe.
Yeah, there's
a lot of baseball like, damn it.
There's definitely stakes here. And this is after State had beaten Carolina in the first game in Omaha. So they have the 18-inning game, okay? Then they come back and they meet in Omaha. And State wins the first game. It's this big celebration. Rodon finally breaks through and beats Carolina. They're in the winner's bracket. They're playing UCLA. There's no score in the game. State has runners on second and third. Trey Turner is up, laces a single to left field. To this day, I don't really know what Chris Hart was doing, but he holds up the runner from second base until this UCLA left fielder clearly lollipops the ball. It flies over the catcher's head. State scores 1 run. The ball bounces directly back to the catcher, who ends up throwing out the runner at home. State ends up only scoring 1 run in the game when the 2 probably would have won it. This game is also notable for a Trey Turner shot.
Yeah.
This was the first year that they changed the bats in college baseball. And his ball would have been a home run like any other year of the College World Series.
Yeah.
Except this one. They had to bring the fences in after this year too, because the combination of the bats and the fences. So truly a star-crossed season. And UCLA did go on to win the national championship, but only after State fell to the losers bracket, had to play Carolina again, and lost to Carolina.
And finally, for the Quirky Plays, 10 years ago, we might have to do a retrospective on this. I got to ask Breaking Tea, because I'm pretty sure they had a t-shirt for this.
Yeah, I think they did too.
The Octolateral at Wallace Wade Stadium. Yet another game I was at, and I still vividly remember sitting in the press box wondering, how long is this replay going to take? If you're watching on YouTube, the setup is simple. Duke is up, ranked, up 27-24 on a mid-ass Miami team. 6 seconds to go. So the part that I want to focus on isn't so much
lateral. It's right here.
It's right. Okay, there's second lateral. Fine, whatever.
All these laterals are legal. They're all legal.
They're all legal. They're all legal.
Throws it back. There's your other one. Now this is the one right here. He's number one.
He
down.
is down.
Right there.
He's down. And I want you to focus. He's down. I want you to focus on this sideline, Josh. How in the world did you not see in real time this man hit his knee on the ground? You are literally looking at the play. You're watching. You're looking at it, staring right at this player. Boom. His knee is down. You're staring at it. And you don't call it dead.
Because they were taught after the Brian Underwood play,
yes,
not to blow any plays dead. The real issue here was this was an ACC network special. They literally did not have a single camera that shot the game from the visiting sideline.
Yes.
Not a single fucking one.
But you don't
because
need
they had the
that.
Duke AV club shooting this game from the Duke concourse.
You also don't need that because there's another.
They needed it.
I mean, not with the knee being down. You didn't need replay to tell that the knee was down in that situation.
But what had happened was the Chronicle got a picture. I think his name was DJ Dallas, the running back.
Now, this is where things get dicey. What you're talking about camera angles. He was also out of bounds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you did need it.
That's where you would need it. But what I'm getting at is you didn't need it before with the knee being down.
I think you did because they're going to let them play it through, which is fine. But what had happened was they had no clear camera angle to overturn it. The only true picture of his knee being down was a Chronicle photographer who just happened to be on the Miami sideline.
Yeah.
Because most photographers shoot the game from the end zone.
Couldn't find the shirt. But
anyway. And so Duke should have won the football game. And the best part too was like the referee during the review had this great announcement about it made it sound like they were going to review like a holding play.
Dude,
it was just a giant cluster.
They went for 30 minutes.
Yes.
Went for 30 minutes reviewing that thing. So there's your quirky plays. Now to our final category, things that probably should end up in the top 10, but are not going to end up in the top 10. These are what you like to classify as opportunities lost. Let's start with the first one. 2002, Duke, Indiana, Jay Williams at the line. Free throws that would have gone to overtime, but don't. I went back and I started reading, there was an ESPN magazine writer who actually wrote about this in 2002, and I had forgotten how good sports writing used to be.
Okay.
Like when you actually had time to write and it wasn't about SEO and like, let's just get this rip this thing out there. I mean, this man, I think it was Andy Lack, or I've got the guy's name that I was reading on ESPN, the magazine. Like this really painted the picture, man. Like it took you there. It took me back to 2002 with Jay Williams. Again, would have gone to overtime. Doesn't. Indiana wins.
Well, important context here. Duke was a war machine.
Yeah, one of the best to never win it. Right.
Number one team in the country. Jay Williams was the national player of the year. Had one of the all-time great seasons. He only had one free throw, but he missed it, and he was 6 of 19 from the field. He had an off game, but Duke had the lead in this game late and just kind of yacked it up. And Indiana, Duke was up 42-29, Joe, at half. Number one team in the country looking to repeat. And the reason this doesn't make it is because of a reason we'll get into soon. The 0-1 team with Jay Williams did win. So the 0-2 sting is lessened by, yes, you were number one all year. Mm-hmm. Yes, you should have won this basketball game, but you choked in the end.
Not in the top 10, which gets us to another opportunity loss. Let's go to 2004. Yet another Duke opportunity. There's a lot of lost opportunities for Duke. 2004 UConn Classic. Can't get over on Jim Calhoun. Can't do it.
This is also a part of a series of games between Duke and UConn. Now, in 99, I would argue the starchiest loss maybe by any triangle team ever was that Duke team in 99. I'll to this day argue that was Mike Krzyzewski's best team. They end up losing in the national title game to UConn. That was Jim Calhoun's breakthrough in 99. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously not eligible for our list, but 04 was Duke's first look back at them to get them. And it was an interesting Duke team. Luol Deng was a freshman who kind of came on at the end. JJ Redick was a guy who by this time was in his second year. Obviously a great shooter. Sheldon Williams, Chris Duhon, Daniel Ewing. Duke had a really good team, but UConn was actually the favorite this year. But this was their time to turn the tables on them. They were leading late in this game, but UConn ended up slipping out and winning and beating them anyway. Another one of those where you look back and you go, the reason Mike Krzyzewski got that title in 2010 is because he was owed one or two from 99,
the sports gods
02 and 04.
The sports gods
he had a little bit of a run in there where you're like, man, you should have had more.
All right, let's fast forward nearly 10 years to 2015. Something that's going to come up with Marquise Williams. 2015 ACC Championship, Clemson and North Carolina, the offsides, that was BS. on the onside
There's
call.
not a replay that shows Carolina was offsides on this play. There's just not.
So this is where having good replay and bad replay, as we talked about with the octolateral, sometimes it doesn't make sense. Even though you have good replay and you can clearly see it, they're still not going to overturn it sometimes because they have to have their irrefutable evidence. So,
this was also at a time, remember, it's a 14 playoff.
Yes.
And their game's down in Charlotte. And I think this was a classic Steve Logan. Everyone knows who's supposed to win.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say that in these situations, Logan always would talk. And this, again, talk about a guy who lived his life at ECU. You know, football teams that the refs know they're not supposed to win. You got to overcome all that kind of stuff. They could not overcome it. But we'll talk to Marquise Williams about that in a little bit. Fast forward to the next year, 2016. The greatest shot that never happened. Another one I was there for, which tangent. There's always a story. There's always a funny, people are all on Stephen A. Smith for playing solitaire. Yeah. Buddy, I got stories for you about some of your favorite analysts not necessarily paying attention to the games. But that might be an OnlyFans, or I'm sorry, an OG fans. I'm just saying. Might be an OG fans subscriber only story. Regardless, I remember at that Final Four, the way it works for Westwood One Radio Row is that you don't get a press seat there courtside, right? You got to be a seat vulture to get the good seats, which I have done. Yes. I have done. And shout out to Luke DeCock, who's a real one, who has saved me seats, giving me heads up for some incredible Final Four games, including 2022, right?
Yep.
Which might come up. Anyway, I was in the end zone for this one in 2016. And I remember Marcus Page double clutch miracle shot that was going to send it to overtime. And I vividly remember the Carolina student sections. They'd given you little seat cushions, official Final Four seat cushions. Everybody was throwing them up in the air. And I was like, all right, well, let me make some notes about how I'm going to, cover this going into overtime, right? And then, of course, Chris Jenkins happened. Bang. Game over. No overtime. An incredible shot from Marcus Page. Doesn't even matter anymore. It was a pretty wild scene.
Okay. And this is the one we've gotten the most calls about.
Yes.
So let's spend a little bit of time on this one.
Yeah.
Because we now have the benefit of history.
Yeah.
Right? Was this was it an iconic moment in NCAA tournament history?
Of course.
Absolutely. Not only for Page's shot, but the way, there's two reasons. The way that Jenkins not only makes the shot, but then Jay Wright winning his first title, reacting with the bang.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's that. Now, we also know that Carolina was up 39-34, but here's where I would argue that this doesn't count in our top 10. The game was tied at 44 with 14 minutes left. With 5 minutes left, Villanova was up by 10. Carolina, after that 14-minute mark, never took the lead in this game. So the game was never really taken away from them.
Yeah.
There was at a point where Villanova, it would have been a collapse by Villanova, who was up 70-64 with 1:40 left. Okay. So what I'm getting at is when we're getting to the stingers of it, right? It's not a game that Carolina ever really had. Mm-hmm. While they were up at half, and in the last 14 minutes of this game, they never had a lead and they were down for most of it.
Yeah, but you got to remember how Carolina fans tend to be wired about this stuff. You're in this moment. You want to win.
Absolutely. And Michael Jordan was there, all those things. Here's now where we get the benefit of history.
The big spectacle of Michael Jordan. That was another thing why this I'm glad you brought up Michael Jordan, because you got to remember the internet at the time, nearly 10 years ago. Everything was about the crying Jordan meme.
Yes.
So this was like a loss to end all losses. This is why this is somewhat controversial, because not only did you have it ripped from you the way that it was ripped, you also had Jordan, who rarely shows up to stuff like this because the spectacle becomes about him. Even I chased Jordan around just to get a freaking selfie that day.
My argument is it wasn't ripped from you because you never really had the lead. You never really had control of the game.
He got crying Jordan memed himself
in real time.
Time.
I'm not diminishing the sting of the loss. I'm not diminishing the stakes.
Fair.
It's also an iconic moment, but here is where the benefit of history comes in. Okay. Villanova would go on to win the national title again in 2018. So you were up against a pretty good Villanova team there. A little bit of a war machine unto itself. Okay. That's number one. So we know it wasn't just some flash in the pan. We know it wasn't NC State 1983 is what I'm getting at. You lost to a really good team, a worthy champion, one that would win again. And also, and here's the real reason. Yes, I get it. Marcus Page never got to call himself a national champion. But Carolina, the very next year, won the national championship in part because of this loss and the way that it propelled them and motivated them to finish the job the next year.
Redemption.
So there is that. Now, there is part of me, there might even have been Tom O'Brien text that I did get a text from Tom O'Brien after this game that said, the NCAA is never going to punish them. That's their punishment for all the AFAM stuff. That's their losing the game on Chris Jenkins' shot. That's their punishment.
That was a punishment.
And there are a lot of state people who believe that. And there are a lot of state people who celebrated that loss. But the truth of the matter is that loss helped them win the championship the very next year.
Why it's not in the top 10, which gets us to probably our most controversial opportunity loss that will not show up in the top 10 losses of Triangle good history in the last 25 years. Wait a minute.
What a photo.
Did I just show the Ethan Hyman photo of Mike Krzyzewski and Mickey Krzyzewski on a golf cart riding off into retirement sunset in New Orleans? How is that not in the top 10? How is that not in the top 10? Easy. Because of the history, because of the hindsight, having a little bit more clarity a few years after we were all caught up in the moment. Okay. Carolina doesn't go on to win the national title.
They do not. They actually blew the biggest lead in the history of the championship game.
I would alter my rankings if Carolina not only knocks Duke out of the Final Four in the K retirement and officially retires him that night, and they go on to win the national championship. That would be number one. Number one, because of the context that goes along with it. But with the loss by Carolina, and some time has passed over it, I don't think it qualifies in the top 10. In fact, I think through history, that Final Four loss ends up being freeing for Jon Scheyer to take over at Duke. We already knew he was going to be the head coach. The transition had already happened. That's on K. That's not on me. And it wipes the slate clean in a Duke program continuity perspective that doesn't put Scheyer in a position where, damn, dude, I got to follow that up? Actually, I'll let that be K's problem.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my own thing now.
Worked out for them because he had a pressure-free year that first year.
I'm not saying that this isn't a stinging loss. I want Carolina fans to understand that in the top 10, another loss would trump this one, okay? I'm simply saying that the Final Four, the further we get away from it, and Carolina not winning the title that year, has softened my stance on the Final Four dynamic.
Yeah,
it's softened my stance on it.
I will radio this up. I'm not going to step on the true explanation. You'll have to wait for the top 10 and you'll get the full explanation.
Now, speaking of Jon Scheyer, our final lost opportunity. Jon Scheyer had the prince who was promised, Cooper Flagg.
Yeah, all of the pressure-free moments they had in 23 were vanished by 25 with Cooper Flagg, who they knew a year in advance what they had and the opportunity that they had. Not all 5 stars are created equal. Not all, number 1 picks are created equal.
Yeah.
Cooper Flagg is different. He is special. It was their chance to win the national championship. The field was wide open for them. It was theirs to lose. And unfortunately for them, they had control of a game against Houston late, again in San Antonio, where that Luol Deng loss to UConn happened. And Houston, the older team, the tougher team, I don't know if they were the better team, but they executed better down the stretch. And John really struggled X and O wise to put his team in position to close out Houston. And some of that's on John, some of that's on Flagg.
Yep.
But ultimately, it's an opportunity lost. And I don't know how many of those come around. I know Duke has done an excellent job of finding ways to get back in position. But this is one, just like Zion in 2019, this is one of those that you lose and you go, we had one there. We had one.
If we do this again in 2050, okay, and we go back to the last 25 years of opportunities lost.
No chance at 20.
You never know, right? If our kids are doing this, if James and Caleb are doing this, as Caleb is, audio producing or something like that, we can recontextualize what happened in 2025 for Jon Scheyer and Cooper Flagg with more data, more history specific to Jon Scheyer. The reason why it misses the top 10 specifically is because Jon Scheyer's career arc isn't done.
Right.
It's not done. It could be that he does go on to win a national championship and that what happened in 2025 ends up being, man, You had the team that year and you came up short, just like Mike Krzyzewski's had the team that year and they've come up short, just like Roy Williams has had the team that year and come up short. But we don't know yet. We don't know what Jon Scheyer's career arc is going to be. So in the first 3 years, though, the reason why this occupies this interesting opportunity loss is multi-layered. The biggest one is that winning the national championship within 3 years of taking over that program from Mike Krzyzewski would have been the ultimate win for Mike Krzyzewski. To finally pull off what so many legendary coaches have tried to do, programs have tried to do, find a continuity plan that you never missed a beat. Now, you could say that that's still true, given how Duke has been under Jon Scheyer the last 3 years. They have been consistent. They have been doing well recruiting-wise. They've gone to the Final Four, like all that kind of stuff. They won ACC championships, all that kind of stuff. But had you won it, end of discussion. It completely erases everything that happens. Well, maybe not everything, but a good chunk of what happened in 2022.
Well, you also get to tell everyone to shut up.
Right.
You know, you lost an NCAA tournament game to Carolina.
Yep.
You lost an NCAA tournament game to NC State.
Yes.
You win a national title, you get to tell everyone to pound salt.
Right. I mean, we kind of see this with Paul Maurice. As much as I can sit here and make fun of Paul Maurice being, this just pretentious prick with the whole like handshake stuff. Do I see you on the handshake line? Oh, weird. But you know what? You've won two Stanley Cups, man. What am I going to say, right? The same thing could apply to Jon Scheyer. But again, there's layers as to why I don't think that this elevates into the top 10. But you ask me again in 10 years.
Yeah, it could change.
It could change because I don't know what's going to happen at Duke in the next 10 years. So we just went like nearly an hour here. With all the losses in the last 25 years that are not
there's
in
some
the top
hurt
10.
in there, man. There's
like, I know some of you are all going, damn, man, why are you taking me back to that place? Totally understand. And none of them are in the top 10, which we will unveil next week. Housekeeping is brought to you by Enovana. Check them out online at enovana.com. Green cleaning solutions.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it clean with Enovana.
Folks, it is live. The OG summer pop-up shop is a go. We got the Comfort Colors collection. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that we have a couple of the pocket tees in black and white. We have the Tri-Towers back with the Dead Conference logo on the pocket. And of course, we're bringing back the Drunk Wolf. The year of the hangover never ends. You're always going to find a reason, as we are illustrating today. You're always going to find a reason where you will be sitting there looking like the drunk OG with a six-pack and just sports making you hurt, making you feel things. So that shirt's never going to go out of style. In fact, I was debating about this with somebody who's like, well, no. Why is the drunk OG back? Like the year the hangover is officially over. I'm like, buddy, it's the triangle.
When in doubt.
There's going to be a reason. Of course, we got tank tops for this as well, both in black and white. And we have the OG hat vault back open. We've brought back the Richardson 112 trucker hats. And of course, the OG Golf Classic hat. Look at that thing. It's beautiful.
Beauty.
It's a beautiful thing. Now, the hats are $38.25. We're trying to keep these things as close to cost as possible with our friends at Basics. If you are an OG Fans subscriber, be on the lookout for an email. I think it should come out today if it hasn't already, for your free ship code, which essentially gets this thing down to cost when you get the free shipping. So by all means, check them out. You should be able to click the direct link in the YouTube and podcast descriptions. You can also go to ogtrianglemediashop.com. By now, it should redirect to the pop-up shop. So if you go to ogtrianglemediashop.com, it should redirect you there. If it doesn't, go to the direct podcast link that is available in YouTube and the podcast summary. Speaking of promo codes and all sorts of other fun stuff, our friends at Rhoback are having a sale right now. So if you've ordered from Rhoback, check your email because they've got a special code for you for an additional 20% off.
Perfect.
If you have not used your promo code yet from us, OG20, now's the time to do it. So go to Rhoback.com, use that promo code OG20. If you've purchased from Rhoback in the past, by all means, check your emails, take advantage of even more savings. It's the summer of savings here on the OG. So again, go to Rhoback.com, use that promo code OG20. All that money you save means that you can just go ahead and buy a bunch of pints of ice cream from our friends at Two Roosters. Go to tworoosters.com right now. You can check out the fan favorite flavors that are back for the month of June, including that Death by Chocolate Brownie, the peanut butter mud pie, which is really, really good. And speaking of peanut butter, we're not going to come out with ice cream flavored ice cream.
No.
In July, our flavor will not be ice cream flavored ice cream. It works for beer.
It does.
Ice cream, we got to step
you
it up,
gotta
Joe.
get a little bit fancy.
This is your baby.
So we got peanut butter flavored ice cream with Reese's peanut butter cups. And because every great flavor, every Mount Rushmore flavor at Two Roosters has to include a fudge ripple.
Yes.
I could not be more excited.
Very excited about this. I'm going to power through eating our own ice cream. Have to do it. Speaking of, saving money, well, there's also maximizing value. That is your home right now in the Triangle. It's very competitive. You want to make sure that you're maximizing the value of your home. You don't want to take one of these cash offers. You're literally leaving money on the table. Don't do that. Contact our friends at Hometown Realty, myhtr.com. Again, that's myhtr.com. A lot of new construction going up. We're talking empty lots that can connect you with a builder. There are some spec homes that are out there. Might be some builder incentives, save a little something while you're trying to buy a house that's been sitting there out there in the inventory for a hot minute. Hometown Realty, they know all these things. So check them out online at myhtr.com. You take that thing to close, Whitaker and Hamer can help you out with that. WH.lawyer, attorneys and counselors at law. Folks, they have every legal need possible covered for you. So check them out online at WH.lawyer. A little bit of housekeeping in terms of we'll be out and about. So we're going to be at Shady's in Garner in July. Be on the lookout for that. We'll be tapping a
717.
We'll be tapping a keg of OG Light. Got word that a new canning run of OG Light will happen here in a couple of weeks. So be on the lookout for that. And of course, we're going to be at Longleaf Swine this Thursday.
Tomorrow.
2:00, OG Live, thanks to our friends at the Butcher's Market. So again, go to longleafswine.com to find out more about their menu. Check out the brunch. It is undefeated. You can get OG Light there, by the way. And we'll be out there tomorrow starting at 2:00, thanks to our friends at the Butcher's Market, who always bring you the OG Live, along with the mailbag. Check them out online at thebutchersmarkets.com. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, former quarterback for the Tar Heels, now at Lewisburg College as the QB coach. He is Marquise Williams. Huge Caniac, too. Marquise, what's up, man?
Not much, guys. How you guys doing, man?
We're good. We appreciate that you could make this work out. Last week, we unveiled our Mount Rushmore of Triangle good quarterbacks of the last 25 years, kind of illustrating we've had some dudes. We've had some dudes come through the Triangle.
That's true, man.
And you were on there with Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson, and Sam Howell. And like the through line is, and curious your opinion on this, especially when it comes to Triangle football and the rivalries, and we're going to surpass you. No, we're better than you. We got you in this rivalry game.
Right.
We've had some dudes, and at the end of the day, all three Triangle schools keep coming up short in these situations. It's kind of a bummer, including you in 2015 right there, which might come up a little bit later.
Definitely have came up short with some great quarterbacks, man. I'll tell you that.
So it's funny. We were going through the honorable mentions here. That's the whole point of today's episode. And 2015, let's actually start with that championship game and how that season went and just how you guys were on a roll. What I think what people tend to forget is how the score did not indicate how close that game eventually got. You think that's been lost to time in the last 10 years?
Man, like you talked about, that game was one of the best. Well, it started slow for me at first. I mean, I've never seen a defense, with a lot of first round and second rounders on that team in my life. Man, they were really good, man. So it was like giving me a lot of different looks that I'd never seen. I actually studied way more on them than I did for like the 2 weeks preparing for the ACC championship. But they brought Brent Venables brought something new, man. It's like he brought something new every series, mainly every down. And that was a heartbreaker, though, man. We fought back. I finally started to get some rhythm. We scored back-to-back, like, really quick. And with that offside kick, man, honestly, I didn't even know what really happened at the time because I had my head down just praying that we got the onside kick. And then I just see people jumping up. And then it was like, well, the flag was there. So after watching it several times, it was like, man, dang, they ripped this one. But Hey, it happens, man. Honestly, it happens. I feel
Yeah.
like, Clemson was the better team that night. They won, and they was the better team that night. And hats off to Deshaun and them for winning the AC championship. And I think they maybe played for the national, or I don't know that year. But man, it was a good year for us as the University of North Carolina. It was a fun time, but man, also heartbreaking at the same time.
Yeah,
Are you saying that like 10 years later you're able to say that? Or were you like in real time saying like, how the heck was somebody offside? It's 2015. We have replay.
yeah, Ryan
Yeah.
Switzer was immediate with it after the game.
Yeah.
Like immediate with it.
Yeah, man. I was immediate too, but at the same time, man, it's football, man. It shouldn't have came down to that. Honestly, I take accountability of like how slow I started, man. If I never started slow and I started fast, how I did the other 10 games that we played prior to that, man, we'd probably won the game. But I started slow, so once one play doesn't define the whole game. I mean, that was a big play, but at the same time, if I'd have played the game I've played all year long, we would have not been in that situation. We should have won the game and wouldn't have to be in that situation.
The twin losses that year in Charlotte, but you guys won 11 games in a row. In that run, what are the wins that kind of stand out to you? Obviously, you guys put up 66 on Duke, and then the Miami game, you got them pretty good at Keenan. So what kind of goes through your mind when you think about that 11 game winning streak?
Man, honestly, it's just the two rival games. The Duke and State game, man. I mean, the Duke game we was rolling, and then the State game. I mean, the score don't tell at all, but we went in there and put 35 on the first quarter. That was impressive, man, because that was once again that was a dang on a good football team. I think Jacoby Brissett was a heck of a quarterback for them, also, man. But it was fun, man, just to go in there and handle business and get your rivals. Like you say, it's the triangle area. You always want to beat your rivals, and the way we went about it that year, man, it hasn't been done. It hasn't been done the way we've done it, and just gotta say, man, that last year was fun. We beat everybody in the state. I don't think everybody could say that from the University of North Carolina football team. So, man, the way we went about that year, it was different. Won those 11 games, first time ever in school history. That was fun. So, I mean, it was a lot of excitement time in that 15 season, man. And there's days I sit back in bed and reflect back on it, like, man, I wish I could do this again.
Yeah, reflecting on it, and you can kind of clear the air on this. The impression that was always given was that you really had to fight for that starting job. You had to fight for that starting job.
Yes, sir.
It was a matter of obviously your performance on the field, making it difficult for Larry Fedora to take you out, and also I guess the room too, kind of going, all right, man, like this is our guy right now. Mitch Trubisky can wait. So how did you kind of reflecting on that? How did you feel you handled it then? Now that you've had 10 years of hindsight to think about this kind of stuff, how did that all play out?
Man, I actually handled it pretty well. I just knew that, I was going, not nothing against Mitch and, hats off him, but I was going against myself. If at the time coaching staff didn't feel like, I was the one, I was going to make them believe I was the one. I always wanted to play. If I was playing behind, hey, this between me. If I'm gonna win this job, it's gonna be up to me to win this job, and that's what I did. And I went through a lot of adversity. I flunked out at freshman year and got back in. So everything I went through, there was a reason behind everything. So it was, fighting for the position. I knew that I was the better man at the time playing the game, and that's what happened. So may the best man win is what I always said, and I came out on top. And that's just nothing cocky. I just knew that I was the best quarterback at the time, and and it paid off and it showed. That's why we went on to win 11 games in 2015. So
I'm going to try to pull up the potential good memory from this day in 2014.
What is the hell of a sky that day?
Hey, listen, man.
There's two things people remember about this game.
Man, listen.
The final score and the sunset. So
listen, dude,
I'm trying not to be an asshole right now. Although, the sunset was unbelievable.
Listen, man, that team was stout. They were really freaking good from offense to defense to special teams. I mean, they were hungry. They were hungry, and we was going through coaching changes, man. We things wasn't rolling for us in that year, man. And they called us as a bad year. And I talked to Zeke Bigger, who was actually on that team, actually picked me off, and pick six went to the interception. I told him I wish we got to play y'all in 2015 because the last two times they, that was, I think it was 70, maybe 70 that year, and then maybe the year before it was like 60 something when they came to Chapel Hill. So those guys wasn't no slaps, man. You had Shane Carden, Justin Hardy, Zay Jones. You had some dudes on that team, man, and they was ready. And I gotta give it to you. I don't know what God did that night, but that was a beautiful freaking sky.
It
That,
really was. Like,
hey, I'm never going. I'm always going to be honest. I'm going to shoot it straight. That was to the way they whooped us, and to have that set over the sun like that was awesome. I don't know what God was thinking, but hats off to God. That was a beautiful. And
hey,
every time I see my boys from ECU, I tell them, man, y'all beat the heck out of us. That's just what it is.
I do have a curiosity about ECU, but before you're talking about, I don't know what God was thinking that night. I'm sure a lot of Tar Heel fans were wondering that too. Because remember, God must have been a Tar Heel fan because the sky is Carolina blue.
But that night it was purple.
But that night it was purple.
It was purple, man. It definitely was purple.
What are we doing?
It was.
So it's interesting. We're sitting here talking about the triangle. We got ECU fans that listen to the podcast, obviously. But I know as they're listening to this kind of stuff, ECU is on the other end of some of these things, right? Even NC State's
not
had
70, man.
not 70, but ECU's on the other end of some of like, oh man, how do we lose to you?
Yeah.
Right.
And I've always been kind of curious about those dynamics. You're focused on State, you're focused on Duke. And I've been, even before your time, I mean, I remember going to cover a Carolina game and ECU getting the better of the Tar Heels and State too. And they're like, they wanted it more. Like, how do you counteract that mindset from them? Because they're the ones that aren't discussed. They're the ones that probably have a chip on their shoulder saying, you know what? I didn't get recruited by UNC. So I want to show them how that kind of stuff. So going into a game like that, I guess mentally you might know that, but once you get on the field, how does that play out?
Man, honest, it's like you say, like sometimes you feel like you're the big dog, and then sometimes the big dog get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
And that's what they did, man. There was a lot of guys that always talk about what you just said. Man, I didn't get an offer from Carolina. I didn't get an offer from Duke. I didn't get an offer from State. So when we get the chance to play them, we're going to play our hardest. And that's what they did, man. And all those guys that played that night and the year before, they could play. They could have played anywhere. They just didn't get the opportunity to come out of high school, and then they showcased they talent, what they did. They were damn good, man. They were really good, man.
You have any suggestions for the Carolina Hurricanes this offseason?
Man, we gotta finish, man. That's my suggest. We just gotta finish, man. I'm stressing too much. I don't want to say this on air, but we need to find a new goalie too. I'm sorry to say it.
Okay.
Sorry to say it, man. Sorry to say
I
it.
think this year you're getting one more time. With Freddie.
They're running.
I know.
One
I'm
more
sorry.
year.
Not unless they're pulling an okie doke on us
Yeah.
and cooking up some deal.
They've got 2 movable contracts with Freddie Anderson and Kochetkov. They signed Kochetkov to what might be a team-friendly deal, but the goalie market's insane right now.
Yes, it definitely is. It definitely is.
But they have a lot of money. I'll be curious to see, because you say goalie, I say in the playoffs, guys who finish. I mean, we're seeing this with the Panthers, right?
Yeah.
You got Sam Bennett. I know that the knock is, Sam Bennett in the regular season. What do you like to say, Joe? Do the Canes need that in the regular season?
Cool.
Yeah, Canes are fine in the regular season.
Yeah, we're fine.
They need that in the postseason.
But yeah, that's it. Postseason, baby.
That's what's been getting me, man, when it comes to the Carolina Hurricanes.
We got to get Marquise a positive vibes only shirt because I've never heard anyone this positive in my
We'll
life.
send him one. We'll send him one for sure.
Hey, just send me one. I got it.
All right, we're good. I'll get you one in Tar Heel blue.
Sounds
We're gonna
great, brother.
We're going to make sure that happens. Marquise Williams, former quarterback, UNC. Hey, man, we appreciate the time as always. We will catch up, and good luck this football season, man.
Hey, appreciate you guys, man. Thanks for having me. It's all love. Want to get to talk to my favorite guys, man. You guys are the best, man, for real.
Appreciate it, man.
Yes, sir.
Big thanks to our friends at Happy and Hale. Let's take a quick hockey break in the middle of our triangle. Good stuff.
Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hale.
Congratulations to the Florida Panthers. They did it, Joe. They did it again.
All the Sams, all the goals. Unbelievable.
I really only have one question about last night's back-to-back Stanley Cup championship run for the Florida Panthers. 3 Stanley Cup Finals appearances. They've won these last 2. Paul Maurice, man, what a way to just have your career come full circle. much like we've come full circle on Paul Maurice and the handshake line. Remember, this is a man who said that the Warriors belong on the ice for the handshake. There's something beautiful about the guys who have given up everything for this series win, to have the camera on them, focused on them, not some guy in a suit chewing gum, drinking coffee, not playing it, not sacrificing his body. I believe the exact quote from him after the Canes had beaten, or I'm sorry, after the Panthers had beaten the Florida Panthers, some coach wanted to get on camera. It's the only thing I can figure out, right? So I'm to assume that Paul Maurice just wanted to be on camera. Is that what that was? Or could it just be that the two teams he seems to have not wanted to shake hands with were the two teams that fired him?
You would think he would take extra zeal in shaking hands with those teams.
I just think it's kind of funny. Anyway, what's not funny is Happy and Hale. It's not funny in that you go, man, how did you guys come up with this bowl? This is delicious.
So many different combos.
Great smoothies as well. Download the app. Use the promo code OG25 to save 25% off your order. And make sure you check out the pop-up location in Smoky Hollow in downtown Raleigh. Big thanks to our friends at Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. I was thanking our friends at Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority this past weekend because I was doing some grilling. I broke out the cajachina, roasting some chickens. It was fantastic. Wasn't getting bitten up, thanks to our friends at Mosquito Authority. So if you'd like to enjoy the outdoors, as much as you can with the swampiness that's happening right now, but
it's a little toasty.
With all the rain, all the damp, all that kind of stuff, it's prime breeding for mosquitoes. So take care of that with our friends at Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. Check them out, bugsbite.com. And speaking of your home, you want to save on your home and auto when it comes to insurance, our guy Matt Davis is going to make sure that happens. It's the OG Summer of Savings. InsureGarner.com. 919-779-8277 for Matt Davis. You know who's not triangle good? You know who exceeds triangle good? Gordon Miller Lending, joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline. You might be looking at your rates going, yeah, man, these are good enough. No, Gordon can always do a better situation. What up, Gordon? How are you, sir?
Hey guys, I think I've coined this now to the Joe and Joey G show, or if that's okay with you guys. I do like that Joey G angle, and you've got Game 6 for the Thunder going tomorrow, right?
I thought we were all Caitlin Clark, all hands on deck. Caitlin Clark. That's the only thing that seems to move the needle these days.
Well, no, it was just that Joe had the bold
And the balls.
prediction of OKC in 6, and here we are.
Okay.
Yes, the thing that gets awfully frustrating about the mortgage environment is that I've got friends that are appraisers, I've got friends that are in title, I've got friends that up in Michigan are doing closings, and it's so hard to accept when I hear of someone out there refinancing at the moment who had just bought the property a year ago, went ahead and paid a bunch of costs to get a rate a year ago, just came back in now, they're paying a whole bunch of money to refinance again. And that's basically the essence of why I started doing no-cost loans back in 1987. When rates are volatile like this, it just doesn't make sense to pay closing costs to buy a rate down. Rates are moving all over the place. We're, over 0.5% lower than January, and people paid a bunch of costs to get the rate today. So the point behind our program is, again, you don't pay any closing costs whatsoever. Nothing's rolled in. That's a key, because a lot of people want to say it's nothing out of pocket. Nothing like that. Joe, you're a testament to the program. It's the essence of letting the mortgage market work for you, as opposed to you being the victim of whatever the rates were at the time that you needed to do what you were doing. So, we have a lot of life experience here in North Carolina and locally with people that that have taken advantage of the program. And frankly, I'm still trying to find out why people are paying closing costs, since you never win. Typically never win by paying down the rate with a bunch of fees. And that's all people are marketing right now, is a bunch of fees.
This really does tie into today's Triangle Good episode because you're talking about trying to win. All the instances that we've been giving you are instances where you do not win.
Yeah.
Heartbreak. And I can
Gut
see,
punches.
I can see the gut punch for somebody who just paid a bunch of closing costs and then you find out that the rate available today, you just paid a bunch of money to get. That's a gut. You think Marcus Page making a shot that could have sent you to overtime until Chris Jenkins did the thing was a gut punch. Oh, no. Imagine paying all those closing costs only to see a rate you could have gotten for free.
It's not just the heartbreak; it's the financial heartbreak.
That's right.
Because again, it's
heartbreak with some of these losses too, depending on where you were or who you know.
Yeah. Well, and whether you went to Danville or whether you went to DraftKings, it can be a financial heartbreak as well. I should have.
There could be that.
I should let that. Yeah, that kind of sticks. But all the years that I've done this and all the times that I've heard that rates will never go down again, or that this is the bottom. The first time I heard that, guys, was 12%.
Yeah.
We fell below 12%. Rates were never going to go below that again. Now I'm hearing, we'll never get below 6% again. There is no never when it comes to the mortgage market. That doesn't even make any sense. It moves every day. It's dependent on, geopolitical. It's dependent on our economy. It's dependent on the job market. The Fed meets today. They're not going to do anything at 2:00 today, but that is the whole setup of the volatility of rates. So if they go up, they go down, kind of like gas.
Mm-hmm.
You fill your car, it's this price, it's that price. Would you pay double or wait to empty your gas tank just to get gas at the peak? Oh, I'm on empty. I need like 70 gallons for this truck I've got over here. It's what? $5.20 a gallon? I'm off. Let me go. I need the write-off. I watched the accountant. I need the write-off.
Would you rather fill it up yourself or have the rental company do it for you? That's always fun. At whatever.
Yes, right. That's when it really becomes $13 a gallon.
I've been burned. I've been burned by that. Never. I tell myself never again. Just like you in closing costs, never again. So contact Miller Lending. Go to the millerlending.com/the OG or call Gordon and the crew directly. Just make sure you tell them we sent you, and you're going to get a Raleigh Wine Shop gift basket to go along with going to close. So go to millerlending.com/the OG. That is our landing page, and you'll get going on that.
One thing real quick, Joe, that I found that is interesting is that we've actually, through the show, closed several former customers who, in watching the show, it triggered them to go ahead and they save money again, and they love the basket. The basket's the highlight.
Yes.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Better than a Derek Jeter gift basket. That's all I can say. Now, yes. We've been sitting here talking about losses and whatnot, losses that stick with you. These are we've done the honorable mentions today of the last 25 years.
These are the ones that didn't make the top 10.
Yeah, these did not make the
top 10. People are not happy with us. I already know people aren't happy with us.
We will unveil the top 10 next week. But if you can, and you're a Duke guy. In the last 25 years, what would be the loss that still sticks with you?
Does it have to be Duke related? Because I'm also a multi-sport fanatic.
This is true.
I would have to go with the Lions' 24-7 halftime lead in the NFC Championship game, with everyone expecting and making flight plan. Not me, of course.
No, never you. You would never do such a thing. Never.
Not at halftime, no. So I personally, that's my biggest gut punch. Duke has presented multiple failures for me. So, I've been at the championship wins. I would say the last 90 seconds of this year's Final Four was rather, I don't know if I would say gut wrenching. Mm-hmm. It just seemed it was sad is the only way that I could say it. It was,
improbable.
The moment took away what happened for the first 38 and a half minutes, and they just got caught up in it. They're a young team. They're always a young team, which means you're susceptible to any surprises. But, the recent Duke loss would be right up there. The gut-wrenching Mark Williams missing free throws against UNC to maybe ice that victory. That was probably up there.
Yeah.
But, when you're from Detroit, I've got like a top 200 list. I wouldn't even know where would I start? Like Michael Jordan sweeping the Pistons the first time that he got us.
Yeah.
Throwing the ball away at the Garden.
Yeah.
Right. The Red Wings giving up a goalie to lose the Stanley Cup. There's so many things over time. I would like to mention the one thing that was kind of a fun story was, as I'm sure you remember, maybe, Colorado once came into Ann Arbor with Cordell Stewart and Michael Westbrook as a receiver. So we are in that stadium, and it's about 8 seconds to go. Michigan punted, the ball's down on the Colorado 26-yard line. So we got up to beat the traffic. I mean, Ann Arbor, it's 113,000 people. It's packed.
Yeah.
And I had one of those mini TVs with me at the time, so I could just watch the end. And my friends were they were Colorado fans. And we walk out of the stadium, and I'm like, the guy, buddy's like, "What's happening?" And I said, "Stewart just threw the ball. It's in the air. It's still in the air. What the hell? Wait, what just happened?" And as I'm exiting the stadium and the Colorado fans are all standing out there in the parking lot already, I said, "You guys just missed the biggest comeback in the history of your program because you wanted to beat the traffic and grab a beer. I just fortunately missed the worst loss other than App State in Michigan history." So how he threw the ball 80 yards in the air, which nobody would have ever anticipated, that's kind of gut right. There's a bit gut. The gut was gone that day, I guess I would say.
We all have that, and I guess that's the thing that when we did the Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks last week, it was like, yeah, okay, people had their whatever. This one seems to have gotten people going. We've received many OG Sports phone calls about this, which we will play most of them next week when we unveil our top 10. This was the honorable mention episode. All right, Gordon, we got to get people to understand the value of their home. Credit card rates are ridiculous. It's a better situation to consolidate your debt with a home refinance. Use the value of your home. And of course, no closing costs means that the rates continue to fluctuate. You can take advantage of it 6 months later for all you care. I mean, I've done that. I've been in that situation where I refinanced and then 6 months later I refinanced again because the rates came down. So all this stuff is available to you thanks to our friends at Miller Lending. So contact them today. Go to our landing page, millerlending.com/the-OG. And that way, we'll get the ball rolling on that.
Yeah, it's that simple. I mean, you and I go back financing probably 20 years. There's people in this market that most of my friends are former clients. They go back to the late 90s. Barry Saunders wrote for the N&O. Good friend of mine now. He was a client back in 1997, I think. So we're part of the community. That's the difference. It's become so internet-based and everybody's all over the country. But, there's something about working with local. We're a family-run business. My sons, Daniel and Justin, run the company now. I've had to step aside due to health reasons, but, I'm still here and still, doing the marketing and trying to explain to people, don't spend money for costs just because your neighbor did or just because your father did. The no-cost program's been around. My first one was 38, 39 years ago. They've been around the whole time. And Joe has been,
I'm not quite double digits yet. I want to say I've refinanced like 8 times.
I think 8 times. Yeah. And I think our leader is 13, but again, multiple houses, but it's more of a partnership for life. It's really not, the thing I used to do before I got into mortgage was somebody asked me back in 1982 when I bought a house in West Kendall, outside of Miami.
Yeah.
And they asked me about what that mortgage process was like because rates were so high. And I said, there is nothing I can remember about what I did. And this was, 5, 6 years later. There was no relationship. There was nothing. There was no personal touch, no follow-up. Our guys are maniacs. We've got former athletes that are very competitive. Austin Herbert, obviously, who, went to school with Joe and is a big part of this program, and Danny Davis, who played for Carolina, and Mac Brown. These guys, they want to be the best at whatever they do. They were Division I athletes. We've got a 3rd Division I athlete. That kind of mentality really wants to perform at a different level. And we just, we really like to develop a relationship and take care of your needs without you having to watch it. You did not have to become the mortgage guy, Joe. We didn't trust you. So we contact you when it's time so that, we'll force you to save money. It's like if you fell asleep on it, we're going to call you and say, hey, what are you doing? Just lock it in. Let's go.
Hey,
Let's
look,
go.
You're
Come on.
going to save me more money?
We've kind of dubbed this the summer of savings here on Ovies and Giglio, all the ways that you can save money. So make sure you do this with Miller Lending. All right. Before we say goodbye, we can save this for our next visit because I have a feeling this topic is not going to go away. But do I have odds, Joe? You got odds on Caitlin Clark actually getting into a fist fight with somebody?
I mean, they would be pretty good. I mean, I'm just happy to see her teammates finally standing up for her.
At least one of them.
We're finally getting there.
We are getting there, but I do feel all the people who are like, all the NBA old heads, they was like, back in the day, you get into the kitchen there, man, you're going to get clocked. And then we see this now, like all the things that you've ever said you wanted in the NBA is happening right now in the WNBA, and people are like freaking out. And it's like, wait a minute, I thought this is what you wanted. You wanted heat. You wanted people not liking each other. And now suddenly it's like, whoa, hey, ladies, relax. I see you people. I just think it's funny. So we might have to have some Caitlin Clark takes the next time we visit.
I just want to know if there's going to be a free agent goon that can join the fever, because I was very disappointed with the reaction. I've been very disappointed with all of her teammate reactions.
Yeah.
So I do think it's time that someone who can afford a suspension.
Speaking of the Pistons, Gordon.
The Hanson sisters.
All right, man. We'll talk to you next. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
All right, you got it. Thanks, guys.
You just saved a bunch of money with Gordon. You've refinanced the house. You've just paid off all your debt, your credit card debt. I know what you can do.
Go celebrate.
Celebrate at Simply Crepes. That's what you do. You just go ahead and you get beignets, that rum chata, those pancakes, the hash browns, all sorts of stuff. They got the sweet, they got the savory. It's all fantastic at Simply Crepes. They got 2 locations in Raleigh. Got the new location off of Oberlin Road near the Village District, and of course Lafayette Village out in North Raleigh. Be whisked away to Provence.
I also know what you're thinking. Like, I don't really want dessert, Giglio, but their menu is going to surprise you.
Oh yeah,
their menu is really, really good, especially if you like breakfast food. They have that one breakfast sandwich. Phenomenal.
I mean, great drinks too. Great drinks as well. So check them out. Simply Crepes in Oberlin, off of Oberlin and in Lafayette Village. Big thanks to our friends at Keller Williams Commercial. Check them out online at trianglencommercial.com or call them directly at 919-616-8681. With the Donnelly team, Brian and Julie, they're going to find the right retail space for you, right? Like, so you go to Simply Crepes, you're like, wow, this is a really cool spot. It's got windows right there on Oberlin Road. I'd love to do something like this too. Well, contact them. They can find a space for you. Maybe you're thinking, man, you know what? I'm inspired by I'm going to open up my own bar. Cool. They can find a space for you. That's what it's all about with trianglencommercial.com. Call them directly at 919-616-8681. And hey, let's say you got that retail space and you got to make things pop, right? Maybe the window faces the sun at sunset or at sunrise, and you got to make sure you set the vibe. You need like Roman shades or something like that. Well, this is why you contact Bloomin' Blinds. 919-980-9815, bloominblinds.com. Chris and the crew are going to help you out. Look, window treatments really can change the entire dynamic of your house. We're sitting here talking about things like renovations. Sometimes you just need new window treatments to really bring some stuff out, and they're going to make it work, including automation. So find out all the crazy ways that you can improve your home, right down to energy efficiency with window treatments that block out the sun, etc.
A lot of good ways.
All with Bloomin' Blinds. Call them directly at 919-980-9815. Chris and the crew are going to make sure you're handled. So we've gotten a lot of calls from the sports phone, which of course brought to you by our friends at Nature's Relief, about the top 10 losses. I mean, we're talking 3-minute long calls as people have been working through it. We will use a lot of those calls next week when we unveil our top 10 triangle losses of the last 25 years. So we'll unveil that top 10. We've already given you the honorable mentions. You can kind of figure out a good number of what that top 10 is going to be.
A lot of surprises.
But we're going to have some surprises in there too. We'll have some surprises in there too. And of course, we will play your calls next week. So call the OG Sports phone at 919-444-2211.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
So I guess I have to do corrections and clarifications on some of the things that I discussed the other day. So let's go ahead and hit the sounder.
All mixed up, you don't know what to do. I guess we'll clarify and correct something or two. Because you know what Joe and Joe is not the first or the last thing they've got wrong in the past.
Do you think 311 will play that version for us on Wednesday?
What do you want to do for that, by the way?
I mean, I'm definitely going to Crank Arm.
Yeah.
And drinking.
Okay.
I mean, if we got to go in, we got to go in. If not, I'm pretty sure you could hear the concert from Crank Arm. Pretty sure.
Have to get a shot. All right. My brother called.
Hey, Joe. It's your brother driving home listening to the pod. I hope you still have the correction segment because I got two for you. One, it's Carbone. It's not Carbones. I like how you said that after trying to defend being a boomer, because that's what boomers do is they add an S to the end of place names when they shouldn't. That'd be like if I said Longleaf Swines or Happies and Hales. The other thing is Beverly's not British, it's Italian. Anyway, enjoyed how half of the episode today was about Orlando between the Magic and Disney and Epic Universe. You should just go ahead and start that Disney podcast because you're a Disney adult, even though you refuse to admit it. Bye.
I'm not a Disney adult, man. He knows this. I'm Disney adult adjacent. You're making a face. I'm Disney adult adjacent. I mean, was I talking with Caleb and Jacob about the next time we're going to go? Perhaps.
Okay, so define Disney adult here that you're claiming that you're not.
Yeah. Well, okay, a couple things. He's right. So I've had a couple people explain to me about like who the mustachioed man is from the comedy podcast that had the dude Carbone on. Right?
Okay.
I was like, yeah, this guy's like Andrew something. I just know that he's the dude that Shane Gillis told, hey, man, maybe you want to cut it out on some of the jokes. And when Shane Gillis is telling you, hey, buddy, you might want to cut it out, dial it down a bit, you've gone too far. And I say this as somebody who appreciates Shane Gillis. Okay.
Fair.
Now, so there's that. And then, yeah, I did boomer that thing. It could be a boomer thing. It could be a Cuban thing too. I don't know if it's a boomer thing or a Cuban thing. I know with the Cubans, they usually misplace one of the words of the place. So like my dad's mom would not call it Kentucky Fried Chicken. It would be Kentucky Chicken Fry. That's how it would work.
Got it.
So there's those types of things that end up happening. So I don't know, or you add an S to it. I mean, it could be that kind of stuff. Yes, you're right. I've had some other people point out, and this is to prove that I'm not a Disney adult. In that, if I was a Disney adult, I would have remembered that Beverly was an Italian soda and not a British soda. You see what I'm getting at?
No. Your only defense, I think.
Yeah.
Have you been to Disney without your kids?
Yes.
Okay. Then sorry, Joe. You're a Disney adult.
I've gone with my brother without the kids.
You're an adult. You did it.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. It's fine.
It's fine.
That's your thing.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. Tomorrow, we're going to be at Longleaf Swines.
I see what you did there.
You see what I did there? Yeah, Longleaf Swines tomorrow. Matt Brown, Extra Points, is going to join us to talk about what he's going to be doing ahead of the Sports Podcast Festival, plus what has really changed since the House settlement was agreed to, and now we know what kind of money's coming in and everything else. Also, Richard Johnson from Split Zone Duo will talk about the Sports Podcast Festival, get his thoughts on some triangle football as well, all while we are at the Longleaf Swines, having a good time, drinking OG Lights. See, that works.
That does work, actually.
OG's Lights? That does not work. We'll see you tomorrow.